What's up, Vector Marketing? How many of you guys learned something so far today? Raise your hand and say, oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
This is one of the best conferences out there because what I've found is that when you come to something like this, anyone ever heard that your mind's like plastic, not elastic? You come to this, you hear some things, you stretch out your thinking, but the difference is that it never stretches back. Elastic, it stretches right back when you stretch it. Does that make sense? And so when you come to a conference like this and you learn something new, or you see something new, or you see a new opportunity, or you see somebody doing things that you'd like to do, you can never really go back to your old life and your old way of thinking without remembering the fact that that was possible for you. How many of you would agree with that? Raise your hand and say, oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Now I want to ask you all a quick question. How many of you have ever looked at somebody in your family, or maybe a friend, and thought to yourself, somebody older, that you definitely did not want to live the life that they were living? Raise your hand and say, oh yeah. So what I'm here to talk to you tonight about is, I know a lot of you are too young to know maybe what your ultimate passion is, what your ultimate career choice is, how this summer fits in, and that's okay. But what I'm here to talk to you about is how if you just committed for one summer, you could absolutely transform your life. And so we're going to talk about a couple of things. Write this down. Your choices today determine your future self. Your choices today determine what?
Your future self.
Look, there's a book called Take the Stairs by Rory Vaden. In the book, he talks about this principle, and he says that easy short-term decisions lead to difficult long-term consequences. And difficult short-term decisions lead to easy long-term rewards. You guys want me to say that one more time? Difficult let me rephrase that. Easy short-term decisions lead to difficult long-term consequences. Easy short-term decisions, like skipping a phone time, like staying up late, like having an extra drink, like not making that extra call, like not showing up for that demo, like not asking for the order. Look, these are easy decisions to make, am I right? It's pretty easy to say, no, I'll make calls tomorrow. How many of you have ever been there? Say, oh yeah. Hey, I've been there too. I got plenty of days I don't want to make phone calls. But I also remind myself that the easy short-term decisions lead to difficult long-term consequences. So the people in your life that you see living the life that you don't want to live, they're making the easy short-term decisions. They're making the comfortable decisions. They're saying no to the stuff that would expand them outside their comfort zone, outside their financial status, outside their relationship status. How many of you know what I'm talking about? If you understand, say yeah.
Yeah.
So what I want you to do for a quick second is to think about, what do you really want for your life right now? I don't mean like when you're 75. I mean like next 2 years. Or even better, who do you want to be? Or what do you want your life to look like? On what's today? What's today? What day? The 12th. So what do you want your life to look like on June 12th, 2019? Write it down for a quick second. I'm going to give you guys a minute. What do you want your life to look like June 12th, 2019? What problems do you want to have solved? What accomplishments do you want to have achieved? Where do you want to be at financially? Look, a little decision. And by the way, if you didn't get the second half of the quote, it talked about what? The difficult short-term decisions leading to the easy long-term results. So as you look at this page, as you think about the results that you want for your life, as you think about the things that you want, realize that it's going to take some difficult short-term decisions. Does that make sense? Say yeah. So what do I mean by that? It's going to take showing up at a team meeting when all you want to do is not show up at a team meeting. It's going to take not talking to the friend that you know might be a really good friend of yours, but is a POS influence on you this summer when you're trying to do that stuff on your paper. Everyone know what I'm saying? Raise your hand if you do. Look, write this down. Your circle of influence is your ceiling. Your circle of influence is what? So what I'm saying is that even if you're looking just this summer, okay, even if you're looking in the next 60 days, because a lot of you, how many of you are going off to college sometime in August? Raise your hand. Okay, a lot of you. So a lot of you, your summer's not even the whole summer, right? You've got like 60 to 75 days. 60 to 75 days that could completely change your life. And I remember sitting in those chairs just like you guys. And I was listening to speakers, and I was like, okay, good for that guy. Yeah, nice for that guy. I wasn't sure if I wanted to keep doing this. I wasn't even sure why I came, to be honest. I know some of you right now are probably thinking, yeah, I don't know why I came here. And a lot of you, how many of you came here because you wanted to hear at least one thing that could change your life or your business? Raise your hand and say, oh yeah. Oh, yeah. So here's what I've learned. A lot of times speakers get up here and they start talking, and you hear something, and you start to think, I've heard that before, but then you tune out for a second. But the problem is you might just miss that one thing that you came here and sat through all these speakers to find. Does that make sense? There might be just one nugget. There might be one phrase, and I can remember the one phrase that changed my life. I'll tell you guys about it in a second. But I can remember there's just one phrase that it hit me, and I absolutely knew if I just followed what I learned from it, that everything would change. Does that make sense? I'll tell you guys what it is since I already teased you with it. John Berghoff was standing on the stage. He said, every great achievement follows a moment when an individual allowed a perception of themselves to precede reality. I'll say it one more time. Every great achievement that's ever occurred followed a moment when an individual allowed a perception of themselves to precede reality. So you're sitting in these rooms right now, right? And you're watching all these people that have sold different amounts, that have accomplished different things, that sold whatever for the push. And what you might not realize is that your vision of yourself doesn't have to wait for reality to prove you can do it. Does that make sense? And so I was sitting in a room, and I was 17, about to be 18 years old, and I saw these people that had sold $100,000, $200,000, people that were making six figures, and I said, yeah, I want some of that. How many of you guys have ever seen a newsletter, been to a conference like this, and thought, yeah, I want some of what that person's got? And so what I'm saying, if you just decided to commit for the next 60 to 75 days, if you just decided to go all out, where could your life be on June 12th, 2019? So my first summer, I sold $62,000, and I was already in FSM. Guys, do the math. What's 50% of 62,000? That's a lot of money when you're living at home. Would you guys agree? That's not a lot of money to me today. But what I'm saying is that if you want that to someday not be a lot of money to you, you've got to seize the opportunities to stretch yourself like plastic. Does that make sense? And so what I'm saying to you is that right now, this summer, it might seem a little bit big, it might seem a little bit heavy, but you could literally pull yourself out of whatever economic status you're in right now just by making the damn phone calls. Does that make sense? And then some of you guys are doing well already. And so here's my warning to those of you that can do a demo or two and sell $5,000, or maybe you did like 6 demos for $5,000. You could literally sell enough this summer to buy a house someday, to pay off student loans completely, to pay your way completely through school. I paid my way through Rollins my freshman year. How many of you guys know Rollins ain't cheap? All right? And my parents didn't pay a penny. I didn't come from a rich family. I just worked my ass off for the summer. Am I allowed to say that? All right. Does that make sense, guys? So I want you to look down at the paper. I want you to really think about it. And look, there are 100 reasons not to do it. There are 100 reasons to stop making phone calls, to let your friends get in your head, to let your family get in your head, to let people tell you why it won't work. But how many of you, let's just be honest, I just want you to think about this for a second. How many of you have parents who have done so well in life that they do whatever they want, whenever they want, anytime with whoever? Just nod your head. There's only a couple of you guys nodding. Does that make sense? And so here's the problem. A lot of us, we go home, and who do we follow? We follow our family, our uncle, our brother, our sister, right? If you guys want to be a millionaire, who do you follow? Millionaires. But yet we go home and we ask our friend that works at McDonald's, hey, what do you think about this knife selling thing? And he said, I think that's a pyramid scheme. And you're like, yeah, you're right, I'm going to go back to McDonald's. If you drew the pyramid at McDonald's, what would it look like? A pyramid, am I right? So instead of going out in the summer and getting fry oil in your face and working some crap job that a lot of your friends are working who tell you that this is weird, like all of my friends that told me this was weird, 12 years later wish they sold more knives. All my friends that went through training and quit wish they didn't quit. You guys get what I'm saying? My one friend that stuck it out made hundreds of thousands of dollars, and now he makes a couple $100,000 a year selling for a major company because he sold so much he could demand what he was worth when he left. Write that down. Demand what you're worth. That's another reason to go all out this summer. Because when an employer says, hey, here's $25,000, you're like, sorry, I'm already making 50. Does that make sense? I remember being at Rollins, and I was in a 5-year MBA program, spending like $40-something thousand a year. Part of it covered in scholarships, so not all my money, right? But they said in one class, they were like, the average student graduates here and has a $45,000 a year job. And it hit me, I was like, dang, I made 50 last year. I'm gonna spend 5 years here to go out there and have to work up a totem pole of people who treat me like a peon, right? All because I didn't go get real experience. And it might not seem like selling knives is real experience, but I can tell you right now, I just came from a class like this, full of Keller Williams agents, okay? Real estate agents, #1 training company, #1 real estate company in the world. And what are they learning how to do in the training class? Can you guys guess? These are people in their 50s, 60s, 40s, whatever, okay? And they're learning how to make phone calls, follow a script, and ask for referrals. I kid you not. So they can get in the door and do presentations. And most of them are terrible at getting referrals. So if each of you just took the opportunity in front of you, you would gain skills you don't even know about. You know, I just went to sell knives for a couple of weeks, and it turned into a couple of months, and I won a trip, and I was like, dang, I'll do this through college. And that turned into several 6-figure opportunities. Now I run 3 different businesses. I've got 7 people on one team. I've got 4 people on another. And they're all doing really well because instead of having to graduate and go beg for a job, I follow this mantra. You may want to write it down. It's make jobs, don't take them. Look, you wonder why the economy's doing so poor. You wonder why a lot of people, the economy's doing a lot better now, but you wonder why for young people, it's hard to get a job, right? And they go get these jobs they hate in cities they don't like. Why? So they can make less money and gain experience that everyone else is getting, that nobody's impressed by, when you could do something that's really different. Does that make sense? It is really different when you could say, actually, I made $50,000 in a summer selling knives. People are like, tell me more about that. And that's not even the big part of it. Money's not the answer. Does that make sense? Like the skills you get from it, the confidence, interpersonal communication skills. Look, here's one of the best things, especially, how many of you guys are between 18 and 20? Like almost all of you. How many of you, okay, how many of you are between 21 and 25? How many of you are 25 and up? Okay, nobody in this room is over 25. So, here's what you got to know. Young people are getting worse and worse and worse at communication. Is that probably true? Yeah. Here's your opportunity to really stand out now. Like selling Cutco in the 80s was good. You get good communication skills, but everyone was like public speaking and getting, you know what I'm saying? Like your parents had to speak a lot more. We weren't texting and tweeting and stuff like that. You guys could be crushing the competition by learning the experience here. So when you sit in a job interview and the person who's in their 50s or so is like, I'm so tired of all these young people not being able to sit in an interview, and then you walk in and you're like, what's going on? How are you? And you're really good at it. Does it make sense? And you're not the least bit intimidated. I remember running a branch when I was 18, right? And I ran like 1,500 interviews in a summer, or at least 1,000 interviews. And then the next summer I was thinking, if anyone wants to interview me, it's going to be really weird because I'm used to interviewing them. And then I started thinking about it and I realized I am interviewing them. Because most of them are starting at what pay rate? And what am I making here at Cutco? Does that make sense? I'm negotiating with them. Because I can tell them what value I bring to the table. It's not in theory, it's not, does that make sense? You guys follow where I'm going with this? All right, write this down. Ambition is priceless. It doesn't cost anything to think big. And if you're going to show up at the phone jams, if you're going to show up at the team meetings, if you're going to show up at these conferences, why wouldn't you think big? Some of you are going to go into a meeting, right? You're going to spend 3 hours in the office making 6 phone calls, talking to 17 people, and getting nothing accomplished. And someone else in your office is going to walk in, make 170 phone calls, and go out there and have a killer summer. And the difference was made in those minor couple of minutes that you wasted. Does that make sense? Michael Johnson, the track star, he said something that I just love. You guys may want to write this down or at least think about it for a second. He said, we live our lives on a paper-thin edge between success and failure, greatness and mediocrity. See, what I've found is that most of the differences between the successful and the mediocre, or the mediocre and the failures, is really not made in these major decisions. It's made in those small, tiny minutes, right? I remember, I'll give you guys want an example? All right. I remember being in the office, and it was 9:28 at night, and I packed up all my stuff, right, in the middle of a push, just like this one. And my manager, Anna, said to me, hey, Aaron, it's 9:28, man. You can make 2 more calls. You got 2 more minutes. And I kind of laughed at him. He's like, I'm serious. Why don't you make 2 more calls? And begrudgingly, I opened up my stuff and I threw it down and I was like, I'm not making these two. You guys know how it is, right? And I picked up the phone and then, man, it felt heavy. How many of you ever picked up a phone and it feels like 100 pounds? You just don't want to make the calls. So I picked up this phone and I dialed this lady, and all I could think as it rang was, I really hope she doesn't pick up so I can go home. This lady picked up and she goes, hello, and I'm like, damn it. Not out loud. So this lady basically ends up booking a demo, okay? And I go on this demo on the last day of a push and sell $2,800. She sends me to her friend across the street who buys $1,500, who gives me like 20 referrals, and 4 of them bought Ultimates. One of those people gave me 435 recs, referrals written on paper. How many of y'all think that changed my summer? Raise your hand and say, oh yeah. Look, I wouldn't be here right now without that one dang phone call. And I know it sounds silly. What I'm telling you is that success is actually found in the smallest little portions. And I once heard in a meeting like this that in your moment of decision or in your moment of choice, the choice controls the chooser. And I started thinking about it and I realized, like, what did he mean by that? In the moment of decision, the choice controls the chooser. So what that means is that when you're presented with a choice, the choice you decide to make controls who you are. Does that make sense? And so when you're sitting in this room, you can hear what I'm saying and say, you know what, I'm going to go all out this summer. Or you can sit in this room and say, I can't wait for this meeting to end. The choice is up to you, and the choice will control the chooser. Does that make sense? In this room, there's going to be somebody who goes out there and makes $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. There's going to be somebody that just makes a few $1,000s and it totally changes their life or helps their family or does whatever, right? And look, money's not everything. How many of you ever heard money doesn't buy happiness? Totally true. Money doesn't buy happiness, but you may want to jot this down. Poverty doesn't buy anything. It doesn't. And I don't mean it to be brash. I mean it to be truthful. Like, none of us want to live a life of poverty. None of us want to live a life of regret. And most of us can look around and see people that made choices that we don't want to make, yet whose advice do we typically take? Does that make sense? Look, if you want to live an extraordinary life, this is going to sound so cliche, but I want you to really think about it. You got to do things that are extraordinary. Does that make sense? So whatever the ordinary person would be telling you is probably not the right advice. Does that make sense? The ordinary person would not tell me to read 50 books in a year. The ordinary person would not tell me to have worked so hard for the 3 summers that I've stacked up. The ordinary person wouldn't tell me to go open a business at 18 or 19 years old, opening a branch. Does that make sense? The ordinary person would think that's crazy, and yet the ordinary person would live a life that we would be crazy to model. Think about that for a second. Write this question down. Who are you modeling right now? I was once listening to Eric Thomas, and he said the opportunity of a lifetime is only the opportunity of a lifetime if you take advantage within the lifetime of the opportunity. And so what I'm telling you is you've got a 60 to 75 day opportunity right now. That doesn't mean you can't sell long term. You think I thought I would sell knives for 12 years? No, but when I was able to work my way, when I was able to build a network, when I was able to meet amazing people, by the way, able to meet people that would help me do things like write a book. Anybody want a book? Anybody really want it? Oh, yeah. Look, you guys got to grab opportunities when they're in front of you. Write that down. Grab opportunities. You got to grab them. And if opportunity doesn't knock, you got to build a damn door. Here you go, bro. Does that make sense? You got to build a door. Maybe you don't have the best circumstances. Maybe you don't have a car. Maybe you don't know the right people. Maybe you're not from the city you're selling in. Maybe your sample kit's all dirty and because you did something. I don't know what. But what I'm trying to say is that whatever is stacked against you, you got an opportunity to make it work anyway. Does that make sense? And here's the thing. A lot of you want to change the world in some way. A lot of you want to make an impact. And ask yourself this, how can I learn to make an impact if I quit easily? So many people around us, they're not realizing that they turn down the biggest opportunities because, I forget who said this quote, but he says they're dressed up in overalls. They look like work. I was arguing with this lady because she was trying to tell me about the opportunity. I remember my friends telling me that I'll never make money selling knives. Never make money selling knives. Isn't that crazy? How many of my friends do you think made more money than I made selling knives? I can think of one person, and he's like a genius with computers. He's like the next Bill Gates, right? I went to Winter Park. How many people do you think go to Winter Park? Like 5,000, 4,000? And I'm looking at all these kids that had every single advantage handed to them. And yet they're begging to climb up a ladder at some corporate job they hate in some city they don't like because they weren't willing to bust it and get some actual applicable experience. Does that make sense? All right. Let me share a couple more thoughts with you guys before we wrap this thing up. How much time do I have? A while. Okay. Y'all want to keep going? Make some noise. In the Navy, they have a mantra, and they said that there's two types of pain, the pain of discipline and the pain of regret. Write that down. The pain of discipline and the pain of regret. And they say you can only choose one. You can only choose one. And so you got to ask yourself, are you willing to have the pain of discipline? Are you willing to show up and make the calls? Are you willing to go through the motions? Are you willing to call in for PDI? Are you willing to listen on Vector Connect and learn from audios and go to the conferences and do the extra little things that might make a big difference? I remember when I first got in and I came to a conference like this and I started doing all right, I realized something. I realized that this was the first place I ever went where I could learn something that would make me money right away. Do you know why I read 50 books a year? Because for the first time in my life, I found books that I could read and learn and change my financial status, my relationship status, or something right away. I'm not reading Catcher in the Rye. You guys know what I'm saying? I'm not reading these books my teachers made me read. I'm reading things that can help me become a better person, that can help me become a better salesperson, that can help me become a better business person, because I am hungry. How many of you guys are hungry? Say, I'm hungry. Some of y'all don't sound that hungry. And it's like 6 o'clock. You should probably be hungry by now. How long have y'all been here? So, look, rich people get rich for a reason, poor people stay poor for a reason. And I share that again, not to talk about money, but what I'm talking about is mindset. You've got an opportunity to just surround yourself with people that are going to inspire you, that are going to lead you to books and seminars and ways of thinking. You know, I think about the guys that me and Patrick Herrick grew up with in the business. Like, if you guys Google Rob Dial right now, he was a manager before Patrick, right? He was the one that trained a lot of us. He's got like 40 million views on this last video, and it's all about success. He's speaking about mindset. He's speaking about creating a better economy for yourself. He's speaking about all these things that are empowering millions of people around the whole world that he learned here at Cutco. CEO of Uber, started at Cutco. Doug Baldwin from the Seahawks, Super Bowl champion, sold here at Cutco. You guys get what I'm saying? Like, you learn those. It's not, didn't make him a better football player. It made him a better competitor, probably, though. Does that make sense? And I'm not going to take credit. I'm not going to say he definitely did it here. But what I'm trying to say is that if you just took advantage, you might not realize the domino effect of just focusing on this summer. Does that make sense? If you're still with me, say, oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right. This is one of the most powerful quotes I've ever heard. Success is something we attract by the person we become. Or you could say success is something you attract by the person you become. And your level of income will seldom exceed your level of personal growth and development. And when it does, it typically doesn't last. And I'm not talking about a quick picture on Instagram. I'm not talking about, I'm not talking about fake success. How many of y'all know social media is not real life? All right, cool. A couple of y'all will learn. Look, one summer could change your life. Write that on top of your page as big as you can. Star it, underline it. One summer could change your life. One summer could help you build your credit. My credit is through the roof right now. Why? Because of Cutco. All I did was get a credit card, pay all my gas from doing demos, and I did it for years and years and years. I didn't rack up a bill. I didn't do anything stupid. I just built history. A lot of people my age are now, they want to buy a house, but they have no credit history. Never did it. You could do it selling Cutco. It might sound simple, but it'll make a big difference someday. You can gain skills no one else has. I go to meetings all the time, and people say, I really want to learn to speak. And they're saying, where did you learn to speak? And all I can think is, like, how do I tell them? I've done this thousands of times. Does that make sense? You can grow your network. I run into people every day that are highly successful that I sold knives to. Years ago, I was interviewing this guy that's made like millions and millions of dollars in real estate, and we were talking, and he said something on his last name. I was like, wait a minute, I know a lady, she might be related to you, Leslie, and he's like, that's my wife. He's like, I remember you. Like the second I said it, he's like, you came to my house like 10 years ago, and we're talking about this thing, and he's trying to hire me. And the best part about it is I know he can't afford me today because of the skills I got here at Vector. Let me make some noise if you want some skills like that. Look, I'm not here to brag. I'm not here to talk about what I've done. I'm here to hold a mirror up for what you guys can do. Does that make sense? Look, there are so many more programs than when I sold Cutco. The prices are higher. That's a good thing, right? There's more sets. There's more options. There's more all sorts of stuff to help you sell more. We didn't have virtual demos. I had to drive everywhere, right? We didn't have as much training. Y'all have way more training. But the only reason I'm on the stage right now and you're down there, I want you to really think about this, is because I represent the opportunity you've yet to seize for yourself. I represent the opportunity you've yet to seize for yourself. But y'all have the same sample kit. You have the same demo. You're in the same cities in a lot of cases. You have way better managers. We had good managers, but these managers are great. Y'all make some noise for your managers. And so this message is really an invitation to you, an invitation to seize the opportunity that you have for yourself. Let me give you guys 4 steps to taking advantage of the opportunity to write down real quick so you have something actionable. Number 1, decide what you want. I'm talking what you really want, not what you think you can do. Oftentimes in life, we give ourselves what we think we want, but we tend to really give ourselves what we think we deserve. And so one of the things that you're going to get an opportunity to do this summer is to rewire the way you think so you can feel like you deserve a lot more. Does that make sense? So number 1 is decide what you want. Number 2 is to just make calls daily. How often? Daily. It's not that hard. Look, it doesn't even have to be that fun. But the difference between the successful and the non-successful, successful people are willing to do what the failures and the mediocre are just simply not. People always ask me, Aaron, how do you stay motivated? How do you get so motivated? I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret. You guys want a secret to motivation? You don't need it. You got to take action anyway. You got to make the phone call anyway. You got to make that anyway. You got to show up anyway. How many of you guys have ever been all the way to a demo? Like you're driving there and all you can think about is a way to cancel it because you don't want to go. Raise your hand if it's ever happened to you. A couple of us. Okay, a couple of you lying. A couple of you probably haven't done enough demos. All right. If you went on a demo you really didn't want to do, but you sold $4,200, how many of you guys would be stoked to do another demo? Make some noise. So here's what I learned about motivation. You got to learn to take action anyway and let motivation find you. Does that make sense? You got to let motivation find you. A lot of young people, they get terrible advice. And here's a piece of advice that I think is absolutely horrible. They tell you to follow your passion. Anyone ever heard that? They say follow your passion. And what happens is in a room full of young people, you start wondering what the hell is my passion? Like last night you were passionate about Bud Light. And today you might be passionate about selling knives. Some of you are passionate about your next class for like an hour till you study and you're done. You could care less about that class. So what I'm saying is that you don't need to follow your passion. You need to make your passion follow you. I don't follow my passion. It follows me. I get up. I focus on what's in front of me. I focus on what I want to do now in the immediate, and I think about what that will do in the long term. Does that make sense? I want you guys to write down a word. The word is vision. What's the word? Vision. Say it again. Vision. Y'all say it like you mean it. Vision. Vision is the disclosure of an unseen reality. Well, one of my favorite quotes is, vision is the art of seeing the invisible. But a disclosure of the unseen reality, it means that when you have vision of something in reality that hasn't happened yet, like when you think about something you could create, but it hasn't happened yet, and you just make the decision. It could be sitting in this room right now. Some of you are already going to start finding yourself thinking about the things that you want to accomplish, and finding yourself thinking about where you could be this time next summer, or finding yourself thinking about seizing the opportunity in front of you. And as you think about whether or not you're ready to commit, I'm inviting you guys to make that one little decision that might set in motion so many things that totally change your life. Success is never owned, it's rented. And the rent is due daily. And this summer, you've got an opportunity to pay the rent, to just show up, to just make the calls. Whether you want to, whether you don't want to, whether your family wants you to, whether they don't want you to, it doesn't matter. You don't need to want to sell knives forever. I sure as heck didn't. But every single year, I was able to look in front of me and see what the best opportunity ahead was and stay the course. Does that make sense? How many of you guys have another opportunity to make tens of thousands of dollars this summer? Another one elsewhere? Very few of you. Y'all follow where I'm going with this? How many of you guys are ready to commit? Say, oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right. I'm going to share one or two last things with you, and then we'll just stop. How much time do I have? 15? All right. You guys, I want to talk a little bit about living in the moment. Because what tends to happen is, like I said, every little moment, every little decision, every little time when you start to feel tired, when you start to nod off, when you want to go home, when the voice in your head gives you a reason to quit, to not show up, to put the phone down, you got an opportunity, right? And if you just started stacking up the little good decisions every single day, these little good ones every day, you'd be amazed where your life would be in 2 years, in 5 years, in 10 years. But here's one of the things. You got to be ready to control your energy. What's the word? Energy. What's the word, guys? Energy. That's a word you can't say too calmly, can you? Look, you got to be willing to control your energy when you are tired, when you don't want to make a call. Y'all spent all day working. You think I had a ton of energy walking in this door? No, but I have to command the energy I need. Does that make sense? Leaders take responsibility for the energy they bring the world. Write that down. Leaders take responsibility for the energy they what? The energy they what? Leaders take responsibility for the energy they bring the world. And so if you could just have more energy, selling is an energy sport. Like the person who has enough energy to make one more phone call. The person who has enough energy to transfer their enthusiasm to a client. The person who has enough energy to get up and move around. To persist in the sale. To show up, to get up early, to stay up late. You guys follow where I'm going with this? The person with the most energy always wins. They always win. Person with the most energy always wins. And when you're living in the moment, when you don't have to focus on 10 years down the road. But so many people want immediate gratification to make the wrong decision right now. Does that make sense? And so if you would just command a little bit more energy from yourself, it'd make it a hell of a lot easier to make the right decision. Y'all want to learn how real quick? Yes. All right, I want you guys to put your pens and paper down. Make sure your sheet's in front of you. I want y'all to join me real quick with a quick slow clap, all right? When you guys think about your summer, when you think about the things that you guys could do, y'all stand up. Stand up. Stand up. Keep it going. Keep it going. Turn to the person next to you and look them in the eye and say, I'm the freaking champion. All right, ready and stop. How many of you feel a little bit different right now? Make some noise. And in that little moment, that took 5 seconds. 5 seconds could make the difference in you making that next call, which would make the next demo, which would make the next sale, which might make your next push, which might put you close enough to your next goal, which might make you stretch a little bit more when you end your summer, which might put you a little more money in your pocket, which may open up a brand new opportunity that just might change your life. Thank you guys very much.